You are likely familiar with this experience. In a meeting, you raise a concern or point out a flaw that could prevent wasted time or unnecessary cost. You are prepared, measured, and focused on the problem. The response is not disagreement. Instead, the room goes quiet. Later, conversation resumes, but you are no longer included in it. No one challenges the substance of what you said, yet something has shifted. Your presence now feels heavier, as if speaking plainly has made you more difficult to be around. This is often followed by confusion. You replay the interaction, not to defend your point, but to understand the reaction. You wonder whether you were too direct, whether the timing was wrong, or whether you misread the room entirely. Over time, this pattern can create isolation and self-doubt. The central question becomes difficult to ignore. Why does clarity so often come at the expense of connection? This response is not random, and it is not primarily social failure. It reflects how the human brain evolved to function in groups. According to Robin Dunbar's social brain hypothesis, the human neocortex did not expand primarily to support abstract reasoning or objective truth-seeking. Its central role was to manage social relationships. Larger brains allowed humans to maintain cohesion within increasingly complex groups. From an evolutionary perspective, group stability mattered more than accuracy. Survival depended on predictability, shared understanding, and reduced internal conflict. Most groups operate by maintaining a set of shared assumptions that minimize cognitive strain. These assumptions are not necessarily accurate, but they are efficient. Agreement reduces uncertainty, and reduced uncertainty conserves energy. This state can be understood as a form of existential anesthesia, a collective mental posture that keeps emotional and cognitive demands low. When consensus is intact, the nervous system remains relatively calm. When someone introduces information that disrupts these shared assumptions, the response is not processed as neutral data. Neurological research shows that challenges to deeply held beliefs activate regions of the brain associated with physical pain. The anterior cingulate cortex, which responds to social exclusion and bodily injury, becomes active. From the brain's perspective, the disruption represents cost rather than insight. As a result, the group reacts defensively. This reaction is rarely explicit. It takes the form of subtle distancing, reduced warmth, or exclusion. These behaviors function as a regulatory mechanism. They are not designed to punish accuracy. They are designed to restore equilibrium. The group attempts to return to a low-friction state by suppressing the source of disruption. This explains why the reaction feels personal, even when it is not consciously intended to be. It also explains why the impact is often strongest in close relationships rather than among strangers. Psychologist Abraham Tesser's self-evaluation maintenance model provides a framework for understanding this dynamic. The model identifies two variables that determine whether another person's success feels threatening: closeness and relevance. Closeness refers to how psychologically or socially close someone is to you. Relevance refers to whether the domain of success overlaps with your own sense of identity. When someone close to you excels in an area that you consider central to who you are, the comparison process is activated. This is not a mild effect. If the domain is identity-defining, the success of the other person produces a significant drop in self-evaluation. The issue is not jealousy in a casual sense. It is threat to self-concept. This is why friction often arises with colleagues who occupy similar roles, or with friends who share the same strengths. If you are known as the analytical thinker in a group, another person's superior analysis does not feel neutral. It destabilizes the hierarchy that supports self-worth. The nervous system responds by attempting to reduce the perceived threat. This may take the form of distancing, to minimizing the other person's contribution, or reframing their behavior negatively. By contrast, when someone succeeds in a domain that is irrelevant to your identity, the reaction is often positive. This is known as basking in reflected glory, or BIRGing. The success enhances the group's image without threatening individual self-evaluation. The achievement is the same. The reaction depends entirely on identity overlap. A second mechanism compounds this misunderstanding. Cognitive scientists refer to it as the curse of knowledge. In a study conducted by Elizabeth Newton at Stanford University, participants were asked to tap out the rhythm of familiar songs and predict how often listeners would recognize them. Tappers estimated recognition rates around 50%. Actual recognition rates were closer to 2.5%. When the explanation is straightforward, once you know something, it becomes difficult to imagine what it is like not to know it. For highly intelligent or experienced individuals, this gap is often wide. Ideas that feel obvious internally are not obvious externally. When explanations are brief or compressed, listeners may perceive the speaker as dismissive or arrogant rather than efficient or precise. This misalignment often leads to social friction. What feels like clarity on one side is received as condescension on the other. Over time, this reinforces the pattern of exclusion. For many adults, particularly women, these effects are not evenly distributed. Research on the competence-likability trade-off, conducted by Madeline Heilman and colleagues, demonstrates that visible competence is not evaluated neutrally. Though in the well-known Heidi versus Howard study, participants reviewed identical resumes with only the name changed. Howard was seen as competent and likable. Heidi was seen as equally competent, but also as selfish and untrustworthy. The behavior did not change. The interpretation did. Survey data reflects the cumulative impact of this bias. A significant majority of high-achieving women report experiencing social or professional penalties associated with success. The cost is not performance-related, it is relational. Addressing this does not require reducing competence. It requires adapting how competence is expressed within social systems. Communication accommodation theory, developed by Howard Giles, explains how people adjust their communication styles to regulate social distance. Convergence involves aligning tone, pacing, and framing with others. Divergence increases distance and signals difference. Highly analytical individuals often default to task-oriented communication. Many groups, however, prioritize relational signaling. Social bilingualism refers to the capacity to move between these modes intentionally. It is the ability to pair insight with acknowledgement and accuracy with alignment. In practical terms, this means leading with validation when resistance is present and offering conclusions after shared understanding has been established. It also means distributing credit strategically so success is framed as collective rather than individual. These adjustments reduce perceived threat and lower defensive responses. Over time, this approach changes outcomes. Burnout decreases because interactions become less adversarial. Alliances strengthen because others feel included rather than corrected. Influence increases because ideas are absorbed rather than resisted. This process reflects integration rather than concealment. Research on the stigma of giftedness has shown that many capable individuals attempt to protect themselves by minimizing visibility, a pattern sometimes described as passing for normal. While effective in the short term, this strategy is costly over time. Integration offers an alternative. Intelligence is neither hidden nor imposed. It is applied contextually. This is also how individuals avoid the effects associated with tall poppy syndrome. Research indicates that success is less likely to provoke backlash when it is shared. When achievement is framed as collective progress, there is no need for social correction. The outcome is not reduced identity, it is stability. Intelligence becomes a tool for coordination rather than separation. The goal was never to be louder. It was to be understood and to remain connected. If this analysis reflects experiences you have encountered repeatedly, you may find value in continuing with this work. Subscribe if you want further content focused on clarity without unnecessary cost.